Hi guys, I am working on another Inktober piece and another Grim Reaper painting. This is for my art book Memento Mori, and if you missed out on me talking about it, it's just a book that is going to be a collection of my interpretation of Grim Reapers, different Grim Reapers that have different purposes, different situations that they would be the one that might come for you, and different environments, different ways of dying. It's a really a very exciting and fun project that I gave myself. But yeah, this one is a little bit closer to my interpretation of a more traditional death guide. And really quickly, I did want to give a quick reminder that the Kickstarter for Memento Mori is live right now. And we've actually, at the time of me recording this, we've reached the first stretch goal, which is absolutely incredible. I'm so grateful to everyone who backed it, that helped us to reach the first goal and then to reach the second really exciting goal. So if you'd like to go check out the art book and the art merch that I have as part of this Kickstarter, there's a link down in the description that'll take you over there. I would love to be able to reach that next stretch goal, which is going to have shiny cover details and shiny title on the cover. I'm really excited for that. I'm really hoping that we'll be able to reach that. But anyways, yes, that link is down in the description. It'll take you over to the Memento Mori Kickstarter. Specifically working on this piece, I wanted her to have a transparent dress. I absolutely love painting transparent fabric. It's one of my favorite elements to put in a piece. And it's been getting me thinking more and more about spending some dedicated time actually studying this subject so that I can get better at it, because I love it so much. I would love to be able to render it even more convincingly, even more magically. But yeah, that's one of the things that ink washes and watercolors and really anything transparent like that just really shines at, and that's creating transparent objects, because you can layer different colors, different values, as I'm doing right now, and it allows it to really come to life very quickly. And I want to do more of this kind of thing, specifically in my Inktober pieces, because it's really easy to strip out a lot of the distractions that can happen when I'm trying to paint something like this, because it's all black and white. It's all with a single medium. Really, once I'm at that point, I'm just using my India ink and I'm mixing water in it to get different ink wash colors, or tones, values, there we go. And that allows me to just completely focus on the values of what's happening, and also the mechanics of why something is happening. So there's a few specific things that I look for when I'm creating these transparent fabric textures, and that's where the fabric bunches up a little bit more and it's like a peak of a fold. That means that there's more fabric that's together. You're looking through more of it, so it becomes denser and more, basically more particles that you have to see through before you can see the thing underneath. So that means that that'll be closer to an opaque color, whatever that color is, that color of the fabric. So for this, it's a little bit more of like a light gray is what the fabric itself ended up being. So any area that it bunched up on, if the area below it would have been darker, then I make sure that it's lighter. If it was lighter, I make sure it's a bit darker, and it just brings it all together closer to that fabric color. And anywhere that the fabric is laying flatter or it's stretched taut against the form that's below it, that will actually create a little bit more of a transparent effect, because you're looking through less of the fabric, you're looking more directly at it, and then you can have more of the values of the object below it as more true to life to what it actually is. I love how it creates a bit of a new challenge too, where I have to think about the shadows created by two different objects. So the form of this character below the fabric has its own shadows, and then the fabric itself also has its own shadows, and those intermingle together. And I love being able to think about those two things at the same time, and thinking about how I can combine them and create new interesting shadow shapes with that. I also really love to go in on the edges of the shadows, the edges of really anything, and drag the lines of the highlights and the shadows and play with where they actually end up. So instead of just one for one lining everything up perfectly, I like to break that off, kind of like when you're looking through a glass of water. I don't remember the scientific name for that, but how the vision of what you're looking at gets displaced a little bit. I like to do that with fabric too. It creates a little bit more of this diffused, magical look to it. It creates more dimension, and it's a really simple little trick that really does add a lot more interest to something like this. And I find when I'm working on my Inktober pieces, where everything is grayscale, it opens up my mind a little bit more to looking for ways to make it interesting and exciting to work on the painting. And that includes more textural elements. I find that when I am working on these, that I'm thinking more about that. How can I include different varieties of textures, and what are some special effects that I can add into the piece? And that's, of course, something that I'd like to bring over to my watercolor paintings. Even though I have a whole arsenal of colors, I would like to be able to add more textures that are specific to the things that I'm painting so that they can really come to life, and I can have more interest and challenges that are actually presented by what I'm painting. In this piece, I wanted the background to be really textured and rich and wet on wet, and a lot of really darks and some lighter areas. I wanted it to feel like a stormy sky behind her. I hoped that that would have a contrast between the textures of her dress that was a lot smoother and had almost a linear quality to it, where it was following the shapes of those folds. I wanted the background to be far more chaotic and interesting, and it was also really, really fun to paint that. I love doing wet on wet with ink washes specifically, because you can just really, really go to town with all the different values, and you don't have to worry about the colors becoming muddy or not having the effect that you might want. I do always make sure that I do a little test run of the values that I've already mixed up before I do a full section of my piece like this. I want to make sure that the values are actually going to come together the way that I want, and that it'll have the correct contrast from the rest of the piece. So she has really dark hair and lighter skin and a lighter dress. So the background, I wanted it to be a bit darker and closer to mid-tone on any areas that did get a bit lighter, but everything needed to be lighter than her hair so that it would still have that strong contrast. And when I'm painting these really textural wet on wet washes, I like to have at least 3 different wells of ink washes mixed together. So I'll have my like base color that's going to be most of where I am applying this wash, and then I'll have something that is really, really dark, potentially even the just the India ink poured right into a well, and then I'll have something a lot lighter. And that all depends on how contrasted I want the texture to be. If I want there to be really, really light lights and really dark darks, then I'll use just a pure white or pure water to create more of a lighter area, lighter patches within that. But if I want it to not have too much separation between the values, then I'll just use a lighter version of that main value that I'm mixing. The column behind the character, I gave a much smoother wash than the background behind it, because I wanted to make sure that it still had a difference in texture. I wanted it to look a little bit more like smooth marble. And I am going to be colorizing everything digitally, which is, this is just a side, but I absolutely love that process. I used to do that all the time when I was younger. That's how I got into working digitally. So it's been so pleasant to be able to get back to that and work on the art in the way that I used to. But anyways, I know that I'm going to be adding color, which allows me to separate things out on a separate level. So right now, everything is only values. So that's the only tool that I have outside of a contrast in texture to separate things out, to make sure that things read better and that the eye is drawn where I want it to be. So the background, this wet on wet textured stormy sky behind her, and then that column, those are really close together in value. And I was debating for a while whether I wanted to go in and darken the column because it was already the same value. I couldn't make it lighter. And I decided that I was just going to separate it more with the colors as I'm adding the colors, because I wanted everything in the background to be a little bit more grouped together. I didn't want it to start competing with the elements in the front. But if this piece was going to be entirely done as this form, I very probably would have gone back in and darkened that column. And honestly, I really might actually end up going in and doing that anyways, but it is something that I was considering, and I probably will just push it more with the colors. And don't forget to check out the Kickstarter for my Memento Mori art book. I'm so happy with this product. I love the art that's going in it so far, the theme, but again, I would really, really love if we could reach that second stretch goal that would allow the cover details and the title to be metallic and shiny, just like my last art book, Nocturne. So if you're thinking about it, there is that link down in the description that'll take you over there, so you can go check that out. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time with some more artwork, and I'll see you guys then.